This morning we're going to look at three things. One, how effectively are the candidates getting their messages out with technology? Two, how we measure the reaction to their messages with technology. And three, how well the candidates are listening and the public is listening through technology. We have a distinguished and pretty broad-based panel to share their thoughts with us.
What we've seen now is that the first hire in a political campaign is the person who's going to build the website. And in most instances, before a campaign even decides to announce, while they're exploring the idea of announcing, they're going to put up a website and they're going to start collecting email addresses and perhaps, depending on how they filed, even start fundraising.
For the first time, the Obama campaign has recently opened a technology field office in San Francisco. This is simply where people who are good at using technology, who understand social networks, can come to volunteer and they can start tapping into that. And it's the first time that's ever been done, which is pretty fascinatingly interesting. And I think this is the type of thing that will be replicated not just in San Francisco, but around the country as this campaign gears up.
Because of the internet, because it's so easy to fundraise, we just continue to fundraise up through Election Day. And if you're like Hillary Clinton, you finish an Election Day in debt, you keep fundraising throughout Election Day and afterwards. So most campaigns, whether they're using social media today to get followers on Facebook, fans on Facebook, followers on Twitter, email addresses, at least for the foreseeable future, their intent is to fundraise from those people. And the reason they acquire those email addresses for 9 out of 10 months for the foreseeable future, it's because they want to generate positive ROI from the electorate. It's not to persuade them.
I think it's interesting that Barack Obama has 10 times more Facebook and Twitter users than all the Republican candidates put together. There are reasons for that politically and from a technology standpoint, but I would argue that a big reason as well is fundraising. The Obama campaign knows it can get some mileage on the fundraising side out of interactivity in the online world, and I think Republicans are taking a different path. And yes, they'll certainly try to raise money online, but they're relying on big donors who are not going to send it online for the most part. But there's no question that there's a huge amount of negative media in the political marketplace today that's coming from these third-party players who are very closely affiliated with campaigns. I think more and more people in America don't have an intense interest in politics, and I think we're going to see that reflected in November when people go to the polls. In most of these Republican primaries, there are fewer people voting than 4 years ago, and I think you're going to see fewer people voting in November as well. But our methodology is we do telephone polling. There are online companion polls so everybody can chime in and skew the results any way they want to online, but they won't affect the scientific telephone results.
I think you'd have to bet that the future of political engagement, for better or worse, involves a lot less of campaigns or institutions directing political activity and a lot more of kind of lateral communication and the coalescing around ideas that are shared rather than blasting out broadcast messages and ads.
We have now seen the professionalization of the online political strategist. And it used to be the case that in political campaigns, if they hired someone to help with internet strategy or social media strategy, they had like one person who was like super junior or a consultant. And what we've seen now is that the campaigns have hired significant staffers, internal. So we've seen an internalization of political campaign strategy for the internet, and we've seen a professionalization.
There's a lot of space for innovation around how to make content that speaks to people, that they actually want to share with other people and pass on, that actually does well on Facebook, not because we're like cramming it down people's throats, but because they actually care about it and want to do it. And that's sort of what I'm focused on right now. Actually, is how do we actually make sure that stuff that matters, things of political importance, really surface in this very social, lateral world.
I think the key difference there is was what you mentioned at the top, which was it's very hard on the internet to persuade someone to vote for a candidate but persuading them to take your side on an issue, on a single issue, is much easier. And we've seen that with regards to internet privacy legislation. We've seen that with regards to same-sex marriage bills that have been very successful at using the internet for those purposes.